You've been talking right now.
So we began 12 weeks ago undertaking what in Soto Zen temples we call Ango, which means tranquil dwelling. And it's been a time of intensified practice in which I've invited and encouraged each one of you to make your practice a central intention for this time, giving it extra time and effort that you can. And as it turns out, we've been given a lot of time. So we began by asking the question, what is Zen? And we found that from the beginning, Zen emphasizes direct experience of our awakened nature through the practice of meditation and other forms. And this direct experiencing is given priority over all of the other forms, over intellectual understanding and the study of sutras, the recitation of mantras, or making merit, as is the central practice in some forms of Buddhism, or even following dogma. And we learned that this process of realization occurs within a context. So it's practicing these forms within the context of a teacher and a student. And that the process, may have some fairly universal characteristics, but the process itself is very individual, and it differs for each person because we all come to this practice with, different bodies, different experiences, different karma. So it's not going to be the same for each one of us. It's going to be different. And it's really an individual path, but we utilize these forms to help sort of guide us. And as I said, it's within the context of a relationship with a teacher, or as I think about it, a spiritual friend. That's what Kobun called himself. He was a spiritual friend to people. So stated simply, Zen concerns itself with the realization of our true nature through the practice of seated meditation. And we learned about Kasyapa, who was a student of the Buddha, if you remember back, who, upon seeing Shakyamuni silently lift a flower up, Kasyapa broke into a smile. And the Buddha then, through that, recognized Kasyapa's realization. And thus, Kasyapa was understood as the founder of Zen, this tradition that we practice here. And the way of Zen, it uses these forms and it uses these appearances and teachings in order to point at that which is beyond, that which is really formless, and that which goes beyond appearances. As it's often called, it's our original nature. The essence of the teachings go beyond the forms, and they are done in silence. And silence itself is an expression of boundlessness and emptiness. And boundlessness is our essential nature. So we looked at the origins of Zen in the Mahayana teachings of India and how Bodhidharma brought those teachings from India to China in around 475 of the Common Era. We saw that kind of being transplanted in China, this Zen adapted to and assimilated to the new culture. And through the practice of gazing at a wall, enlightenment became a very practical kind of matter. And seeing one's own nature and one's own original face. So it went from the very sort of dramatic stories of the Mahayana tradition in India, and when it came to China, it became very practical, sitting and staring at a wall, as Bodhidharma did for 11 years, they say. Very practical. And then we saw how with the sixth Chinese patriarch, Queen Ang, in about 630, 640, that Zen began to really flourish and take root in China and sort of adapted itself to the Chinese psyche and became very, very popular. And then if you recall back, I talked about a very dissatisfied and somewhat arrogant Japanese monk called Dogen, Eihei Dogen, who went to study the way in China and was about to leave. He was frustrated, didn't think he really learned anything, but he finally met the Caodong Chan master Ru Jing, who taught on Tiantong Mountain in the 13th century. And upon meeting Ru Jing, Dogen realized that he had found his master. And not too many years after starting to study with Ru Jing, Dogen himself realized the way and brought those teachings back to Japan. As I mentioned, Dogen was a very prolific scholar and abbot and philosopher, and his sort of masterwork, the Shobo Genzo, earned him respect not only as Japan's first Zen patriarch, but also as one of Japan's most important philosophical writers and teachers. And really, what set Dogen apart from other Buddhist and Zen teachers in Japan, because there were others, was that he turned away from the external forms, the names and the forms, to the internal mind of transmission. So the emphasis was turning inward, and through Zazen and sitting meditation to peel off the layers or discover one's deeper nature. It was through the practice of shikantaza, which we could call single-mindedly only sitting. Only sitting. That's all that there is. There's no mind. There's no thinking anymore. The Dogen said, set aside all involvements and let the myriad of things rest. Zazen is not thinking of good, not thinking of bad. It's not a conscious endeavor. It is not introspection. Do not desire to become a Buddha. Let the sitting or lying down, let it all drop away. Be moderate in your eating and drinking. Be mindful of passing time. And engage yourself in Zazen as though you were extinguishing a fire on top of your head. So with real earnestness, practice. On Mount Huangmei, the fifth ancestor practiced Zazen to the exclusion of other activities. So he's saying, make Zazen central in your practice. He goes on to say, sit solidly in samadhi and think not thinking. How do you think not thinking? Non-thinking. This is the art of Zazen. So in that short paragraph, he's really articulating the essence of what this practice is in Soto Zen. So after we learned about Dogen, we turned to take a deeper look in the practice of Zazen, the inner form of Zazen, into the luminosity of emptiness, into Satori or Kensho or those enlightenment experiences. And we learned that while they're important experiences, they're not in and of themselves the goal of what we practice, but rather they're really more like significant markers on the way. They're experiences, these glimpses into that which is beyond. Really, they're kind of markers letting us know that we're on the path, but they're not to be held on to, and they're not to be. They're not our goal. They happen in and of themselves, so there's no need to worry about trying to accomplish them. There's nothing to accomplish in that respect. So shikantaza, we learn, means to sit and abide in emptiness, which is what all things reside in, this spaciousness or this emptiness. It's the field, if you will, in which everything is revealed and everything takes place. So it's nothing other than what Huineng called the practice of silent illumination, of recognizing our true nature and our original face. It's our intention to our inner comportment that is the mirror to the outer comportment of our sitting here still on our cushion. So the inner comportment is abiding in this spaciousness and luminosity The outer comportment is being seated, still in body, still in heart, still in our mind, alert, relaxed, and single-mindedly, simply, only sitting. So when we say, it's often translated shikantaza as just sitting, but it's not a passive thing. There's a very active element. I hope you sort of pick that up. As Kobun said, awakening, continuous awakening is nothing but our very nature. So when we sit, we have the opportunity to discover and reveal our deeper inner nature. So I want to thank you for being here and participating in body, in heart, and in mind in this journey through the essence of Zen. I hope you were able to catch a glimpse of the bright and clear moon, the gateless gate, as it's sometimes called. And while the words and the stories might point the way, it is really through your sitting that you will take the backwards step and directly reach the middle of the circle from which the light issues forth. So thank you all for your practice. Thank you for participating. Thank you for starting out this period sitting together and then transitioning into what we're doing now while we're sheltered in place and waiting for this pandemic to take its course. So if you can remember and get comfortable with the fact that all things arise, persist for a time, and then cease, then you can go a very long way in relieving the suffering and discomfort in your life. Thank you.